this flood of comments. Last week we discussed Conan and this blog post that was written about its potentially problematic aspects. Mm-hmm. Lots of good discussion, lots of terrible discussion. A lot of it was from Board Game Geek. So if you're on YouTube and you haven't checked that out, you can read the discussion there. Some very interesting points. I will say, just right off the bat, if anybody that uses the term SJW in their comment, I just ignore that completely, not taking that comment seriously. So that's not gonna get read. But there were some, so I'm gonna quickly kind of try to sum up a handful of them.
Yeah, there's so many, but
and then we can respond. Let's see. Rico Cordova likes the comment of vote with your dollar, which is that says a lot. It says that, most importantly, he says, I think you should be aware of the people around you before you choose to play a game like this in a public setting. Don't make things uncomfortable for others. That certainly, I think, goes without saying, or it should, whether or not you...
So, are you saying I shouldn't play the Codenames After Dark in the public Starbucks?
Yes, I am. Not Cards Against Humanity.
A little late for that.
As a general rule, don't play a game with others if you think it'll make them uncomfortable. Miklos Fitch says, as an African-American board gamer, it's hard dealing with the hobby stumbling and failing sometimes on the road to inclusion. My wife and I hate being the exception to the rule in this hobby, so we are mindful of the games we buy. There are no Lovecraft games in our collection due to his extreme racism, and we won't buy Conan. That's voting with your dollar. Again, going to go through some more. I'm not going to respond to all these. Jared Beiswenger, says, generally speaking, if you have an immoral source material, even if you take out all the immoral stuff, you're still supporting an immoral source material with dollars, clicks, media coverage, etc. It's really just a question of what do you consider immoral and how much will you rationalize it after considering it immoral. Food for thought. Matthew Toole liked our comparison to Marvel Comics in the sense that it is well within the tradition of comic book characters to change with the times, as we said, we've seen a lot lately. Whereas with the Conan source material, a good deal of the charm for its fans has to do with its place in early 20th century pop culture.
I mean, that's definitely, I almost say that's the same with Lovecraft almost. A lot of it is because it's from that time period too.
For sure. And finally, Board Game Geek is really where it seemed a lot of the fans of the original Conan source material had interesting things to say. Daniel Lin on there had some really interesting posts. Said, I believe the first rule for interpreting an author's work is to read it in the body of its literary context. Then we also need to interpret the work in its historical context. Context is everything. And he goes on. And a couple people also pointed out the fact that the author of that piece was somewhat mistaken that there is a female character that is not a support, that actually commands her own troops in the games.
That's not a Kickstarter exclusive? Because I believe in the article she said there were, out of the non-Kickstarter exclusives.
Maybe you're correct, maybe not. But it seemed like people took issue with that, at least with the way she phrased it, may not have been fully representative.
I mean, I don't know if that's true or not either, because I did not back it, so I can't really say.
That was what people said. So, I mean, my takeaway from a lot of what I've read is it's...
Now, I know
sorry. From a lot of what I've read is that it sounds to me... And I actually did download the Conan stories after this. I want to read them because I want to be able to make my own judgment on this. But a lot of people were defending them as not actually being as racist and or sexist for their times as they are made out to be, and that for the context of their times, there are actually some fairly progressive things in them. I don't know if that's true, but that is what people have said.
Two things now. First, when you say the stories, do you actually mean the
Conan
stories, not the ones from the game, not like the...
All of them.
No, but I mean, like, did you like the
I don't
actual
know which
works?
Ones are. Yes.
No, but you didn't download the pamphlet and read what the scenarios were for the game.
No,
I'm
talking about the
original
works
stuff.
of Conan. Yeah.
And I'm just curious because you did say I took out every single. I'm just curious, what was the percentage? How many comments did you skip over?
That's
like a lot.
Use that phrase.
Yeah.
2 or 3.
Okay, yeah. I was just curious.
Not a ton, but they almost always were followed up with something horrible and.
I assume. That's a good bet. But it sounds like hopefully a more good discussion than bad.
I mean, I'm glad it's. I hope that some people were pretty, for the most part, fair about it. I wanted to make sure that we don't misrepresent our knowledge of the stories. I don't want to say that they are implicitly racist or sexist.
Well, as you just said, you just downloaded them.
So that's why I'm making the effort to try and educate myself a little bit on that front. I do feel, all power to commenter Miklos, who said they don't buy Lovecraft games and Conan games. For me, my personal philosophy is I really, unless it's blatantly there in the game I'm playing, like it's so obviously offensive that I just can't handle it, I usually feel okay looking past the creators, whatever their intention or opinions might be, aside from the material itself. If it's something I enjoy, I can look past that. And also, certainly, I'd say in the case of Lovecraft and Conan, you can take a little bit of solace in the fact that they're long dead and they won't be seeing any money from if you take part in purchasing anything tied to their names. And a lot of it's public domain also, so I don't know. And just food for thought, but keep giving us your discussions and check out that Board Game Geek thread. There's a lot of stuff going on there that I think is worth looking at.
Well, I think the biggest thing, I mean, and I agree with the commenter who refusing not buying Lovecraft stuff, but the one thing that you can do that I can't agree with, because I do buy Lovecraft games, but like the one thing is to choose to ignore that even exists, like more like head in the ground. Like as long as you got to accept when you see these things in a game and just be like, okay, it's there. It's sort of like watching an R-rated movie. If you see violence, you accept it's there. That doesn't mean it gives you the right to go shoot up a place like your Neo or something. Like, recognize why it's there, where it came from, and if you don't agree, don't buy it. That's completely fair.
Yeah. Use your head, think about it for yourself, make your own conclusions.
And, or as the one con said, rationalize how far, whether you find it too immoral or not.
Right, which is far more philosophical than anything that we are ever going to hopefully get into on this board game podcast about board games.